Absolutely. We got everybody here.
David, who's behind you over your shoulder there?
Terry.
Hi, Terry. I couldn't see you all the way, but I know who you are. So, yeah. And all of you that are on from home or wherever you are, congratulations on being committed to yourself. This is one of Paul's principles of professionalism. You know, Mike Ferry used to say, and I think I said it on my first call with you, he used to say the 4 big things in success in real estate were pay attention, show up is number 1. And you guys all showed up today. The second was pay attention. The third was tell the truth. And the 4 was don't be attached to the results. Now, when you think about those, Mike Ferry said that years ago, right? Years like in the 80s and early 90s, he used to say it a lot, and how relevant those 4 things are today. I'm not necessarily a Mike Ferry coaching fan. I coached with him for years, but everybody will give you bits of wisdom if you'll be open to looking at them. And Paul sent me 3 videos of Paul's principles of professionalism. It's like that. What was that saying about the pickled peppers in the, what was the tongue twister you used to have to learn?
Peter Piper picked the pickled peppers.
That one.
The triple P.
Paul's pickled principles of pickling professionalism. But Paul, I really want to commend you on doing those, because you're bringing up subjects like one lady that I used to listen to talk to. Paul, did you ever hear Linda McKissick speak?
Yeah.
And she used to say that successful real estate agents state the obvious with passion, right? So when I learned that, she was doing a class called How to Take 10 Listings a Month for the Rest of Your Life. And one of the things she talked about is how she would walk into a listing appointment with a sign under her arm, like a big for sale sign and a lockbox. And she'd walk in with them to every listing appointment. And she would just really go out of her mind, crazy enthusiastic about the principles of the 3 things that everybody does. Put it on the MLS, put on a lockbox, and put on a sign. And she would tell the number of listings she would win because she mentioned those 3 obvious things that nobody mentions, because everybody assumes that everybody's doing them. So when I was listening to Paul on his videos, all of those things came rushing back to me, that professionalism is like a very thick cement foundation for your home when you're building one. It really does the job in presenting how you're going to do. Now, I don't want to beat the subject to death. I've got a lot of comments that I wanted to make outside of what Paul made, but I wanted to start with that as an understanding of how we are showing up. For instance, your day, like Paul's first video was about the MLS and comments, and I love that he mentioned even ghosting people, but let's look at it this way. It's how are you waking up to greet the day? You want to talk about professionalism, it's going to go all the way back to when you open your eyes. How many times do you snooze? Are you doing math? Like, do you know that if you snooze, it's 9 minutes on some of yours, 10 on others? How many of you know exactly how many minutes your snooze is? No one knows?
I don't snooze.
I don't snooze, yeah.
I get up.
We don't snooze in Minnesota.
That's even better news. On the iPhone, it's typically a 9-minute snooze. And I talk to people all the time. They go, yeah, I hit the snooze button a couple times. I go, well, when you hit the snooze button, what do? And they go, well, I'm lying half asleep and I realize it's going to go off in 9 minutes, and 9 minutes will be 7:09 a.m. And I go, so if you're doing math while you're laying down, why aren't you getting up? Like, who does math in bed? But people do. They go, if I snooze 3 times, it'll be 7:27. And so that you look at that and you say, well, how do you greet the day? I told you guys these 4 principles that I want to feel like when I get up out of bed in the morning, but to do it, I have to intellectually. And then I'll get arguments from people saying, well, you're forcing yourself to. Absolutely, I am. Like, just because I sell a ton of houses and I work my ass off doesn't mean I have a tendency to want to lay down and go back to sleep. I do. So I have to force myself to be hungry, humble, smart, and coachable. Look, you want principles of professionalism, those 4 things are them. I'm hungry enough to get out of bed in the morning, not for cereal, but to sell more houses, to talk to more people, to change more lives, right? What is the mission statement of the Rick Geha real estate team? Is to improve the lives of all we serve. If I have a mission statement that is so powerful that it drives me to get out of bed, well, you will be the most professional agent, because if you're going to change people's lives, then you've got to back it up to today. What will I need to do to change people's lives? Well, I'll need to know the contract better than anyone. I'll need to know how to search the MLS to find something for my client that most people have left there, right? I talked to a guy yesterday, 5 weeks in the business. He took 3 hours to send 10 expired letters, 3 hours to send 10. So me being hungry, humble, smart, and coachable, certainly coachable and certainly hungry, I said, I leaned in instead of saying, dude, 3 hours to write 10 letters. What the freak were you doing? I said, tell me about what you did. And he said, oh, I personalized each one. I did the research around each one. I sent in the letter personal information about why certain things were missing that needed to be advertised about his listing, things that weren't done to make that listing saleable. He talked about one, for instance, that had in the MLS, it said it was subdividable into 5 lots, right? Well, if everybody knew that and knew the details, that probably wouldn't have sat on the market, but it did. He called the city as part of his 3 hours and talked to them about what would have to happen for it to be 5 lots. And he explained all of that to the seller in the letter. I left there yesterday saying, oh my gosh, I want to talk to my sales team about this. Like, you want to write expired letters? That, again, the principles of professionalism, waking up hungry, humble, smart, and coachable. And me at 41 and a half years, learning about something from a guy who's been in the business 5 weeks, who has an MBA, you know, and has done all kinds of things. He has a construction company, he has all these other things. He decided to get into real estate. That's the thing about professionalism. Remember that one of the things I look for in my life every day is a miracle. But do you realize that miracles are coming and going right by you, and you're not catching them because you're not looking for them. You're not expecting them. You're not set up. It's the same as if I tell you to go into a seminar, go see this blank guy speaking who's going to do a seminar on this subject in real estate. All right. And you decide to go. But when you get there, you cross your arms and you go, hey, what do you got for me? I'm here. I paid the price. Yeah. Now you have to teach me something. If you go into anything with that attitude, you're not going to get anything out of it. You're going to get out of everything, including your life, including your day in real estate, what you put into it. So why do I say that? If it, like, for instance, one of the things Paul said in one of his videos, I think it was the last one, he said one of the Paul's principles of professionalism was grateful. A grateful person is a joyful person. And then I love that he went through and talked about the different things. But you know, one of my favorite one that Paul said he was grateful for was his past, right? What is our past made up of? It's made up of rocky roads. That's what it's made up of. It's made up of successes that were driven by failures, all right? In 2011, my 31st year in the real estate industry, my 31st year, I believe most people are retiring about then, but I woke up in the morning on a Saturday and realized I was broke. I was living in an apartment. I was living from closing to closing. I had lost millions owning franchises for another company. And my ex-wife had gotten the 3 homes we owned in a divorce. My credit score was in the 4s.
Oof.
Okay.
Yep.
1.4 million credit scores in the 4s, living in an apartment. Now, I did not want to get out of bed that morning. But remembering the principles of everything that happens. Now, what do we all know? What does the whole world say? Everything happens for a reason. Well, I hate that freaking statement. You know what's I'm glad my misery is your humor, so I'll continue. But what I developed for myself long before that, when I was a speaker and a trainer for Keller Williams, is I used to say, if I incorporate the words everything happens for a divine reason, then it'll keep me going. But do you know, like Paul says, if I'm going to believe that everything happened for a divine reason, then wouldn't I be grateful for that divineness? In other words, I have to be grateful for everything that happens in my life because it is on the way to where I'm going, not in the way of where I'm going. It is actually what allows me to be more educated about what's possible and what's probable in the future so I can have the success I'm driving for. God would not give you anything to handle that wouldn't allow you to be a bigger, better version of yourself in the future. Every one of us has big, hairy dreams that we let go of for some reason. And most of the reason we let go of it, believe it or not, falls under the professionalism category, has to do with not feeling worthy. Well, how can you be the truest professional if you don't feel you're worthy of the clients that come your way? Look, I just helped a lady that lost her entire business, and she'd been bugging me about wanting to sell real estate. And you could tell she was going to do amazingly well, super well connected, had created lots of millions in success in other businesses, but had lost everything. And I identified with her like a female version of me, and super hungry, but she would not finish getting her license. I said, look, there's nothing I can do until you have that license. Guess what? What makes people change? Pain. 99% of people will only change because of pain. So what happens is there's the pain of staying the same. And when the pain of changing is less than the pain of staying the same, that's when people change. Because this is, if I move to here, it's less painful. And she got to the point with a $4,500 a month mortgage that she had missed one and she knew was going to miss the next one. She pushed forward and finished and got the license. All right. She's in contract on a transaction right now for $800,000 within 2.5 weeks of having her license. Okay. And now she's writing an offer today on a $600,000 property within 4 weeks of getting her license. So that's hungry. That's humble. That's smart. That's coachable. But she didn't move in that direction until the pain was overwhelming. All right. So we have to believe that that pain is divine and is going to lead us to a miracle. But the gratitude has to come because you have no idea what is the miracle or when it's going to appear. It could be 5-8 years from now. I built my whole identity on being a speaker and trainer for Keller Williams while I was there. I was selling houses. I had a partner. We had a team, but I wasn't really paying attention to much. I would tell everybody where I'd speak. I go, don't forget, if you need a referral, if you need somebody to refer to in Northern California, don't forget me. And then I'd speak and I'd leave. And my business partner, Coco, would call me and say, we got a referral from Virginia today. And she goes, were you there speaking? I said, yep, I was. All right. So it was working. I was sending business, getting paid on it. But my real passion was the speaking and coaching, even though I wasn't getting paid near as much as I would if I would have just focused on selling homes. Okay. That's an ego-based decision, not a joy-based decision. Right? It made my ego feel good, but it didn't really make my pocketbook feel good. So I want you to start considering what decisions are you making in a day that allow me to get where my dreams want me to go, right? My dream was to get free. Well, you're not going to get free without some money. And you say, well, money isn't a why. Of course it's not. It's the tool to your why, right? When you get money, you maybe do something with it. And when I get money, I may do something different with it. But everything I do with my money is moving in the direction of my freedom. What's my freedom say? I want to be spending as much time as possible with my wife and my 2 sons. That's my freedom. My sons are in their 30s. Guess what? Their freedom may not be, oh, I'm going to get free so I can spend more time with my old dad. No, that might not be their dream. That's my dream, right? So you want to be looking at that. So when you look at this whole idea, Paul, I think you should start a ground movement and move it out of just Realty One Group into your association. And not, you just tell the association we're doing something called Paul's Principles of Professionalism, and it doesn't have to be about Paul Ekstrom. It can be about you. And this is something that really needs to infect our entire business. The amount of people who, one of the best sayings I ever heard was listening to a man that I respected and admired in the local real estate industry here in Northern California. And I was at this big Board of Realtors awards banquet, and he was given an award for, he got some award, I forgot what they call it, but it was for being a good citizen in the real estate industry. And he walked up there, he accepted it. He said, thank you very much. He said, I live by this one principle: to whom much is given, much is expected. And he walked off stage. And I ran up to him, and I was in a really bad point in my life, financially devastated, working my butt off. And I said, Jim, that was amazing. Can you tell me what your definition of to whom much is given, much is expected? He said, Rick, everybody's been given a lot of gifts. It's up to them to decide how they're going to give that back. So that statement applies to every single human in the world, not just people who have money or talent or they shine or they're a star. He said, everybody has something they can give back to others. And I walked away from there going, okay, what am I going to be? If to whom much is given, I'm going to say, I've been given a lot. I've been given great lessons on how not to fail that badly in the future, how to be, make better decisions about the partnerships I create, all of those things. So let me ask you, when was it that you considered the pain that's happened in your life and stopping to be grateful for it? Paul said, let's be grateful. And he even included his past and his opportunities and his partners and his friends and family and faith, all of those things. But if we really want to proceed forward, then we have to take a look at what's holding us back. And mostly what's holding us back is our past. There's a guy named Dr. Joe Dispenza. Have you guys ever heard of him? If not, I would Google him, Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's written books. He's been around for years. The doctor is a chiropractor. He was a holistic chiropractor. But he's done some groundbreaking work. He has tons of books. My wife and I meditate to go to bed and to wake up with Dr. Joe Dispenza. We do a 24-minute meditation at night and about a 31-minute meditation in the morning. And they are beautiful because he says the majority of human beings base their ability to succeed in the future on the failures they've created in the past. He said, so you want to create a vision for the future and not bring in the pain of the past. When you create your vision, keep that voice out. And it's hard to do. It's hard to keep the voice out. Well, last time I did that, I sucked. That's what your back voice is saying. So, all right. So I want to ask for somebody other than David and Paul to be willing to maybe open up right now as an example, because there's a lot of you. There's all of you in the room and all of you that are here with your cameras off because you didn't get up early enough to brush your hair. So
Amen.
If you would be willing to, one of you, share with me something that caused you a lot of pain recently that you still struggle with, or a success that you had that came out of some really bad failure, some really tremendous failure.
All right. Who's volunteering?
Not just in the room, but there's a lot here. There's Mindy, Wendy, Ramsey, Angela, Chad, Jake.
Hey, Terry.
I'm thinking time.
Okay, Amy, Ellen.
I got 100.
All right, Amy's gonna start.
Oh.
Who said that? I'm sorry. Who was it?
Amy's back here. She's gonna start.
Your Amy, your daughter?
Yeah.
I freaking love Amy.
We all love Amy. We all love Amy.
Okay, so Amy, do you want to address something?
Whoa, where do I start? I have a couple things.
Well, just okay, pick one.
My most recent one is grief. I am really, really, really struggling with grief.
Okay.
I've lost 16 people in the last year and a half. 2 of them being like my second dads.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's something of uncharted waters as an adult. I've lost like grandparents as kids, but it hits a lot harder when you're 28, I think. And
yeah.
Some great success that I've gotten out of it is being so much more intentional and in the moment with friends and family. And I'm so much more expressive of how much I love people and how grateful I am that they are in my life.
Yeah.
And I've taken out of it my health and how important health is for us, and health is our wealth. And so I think the biggest thing is just every single day I write my 20 gratitude list every single night before bed, but that is how I'm able to go to bed grateful. And I heard a quote once a long time ago of like, if you want to wake up happy, go to bed grateful. So that's where my 20 list comes in. And every morning I wake up happy, and that's my motivation of the day, is to just be so intentional with everyone that I meet and be so grateful that I get one more day with people that I love.
Oh my God. So you
That's
just,
why we love Amy. Thanks, Amy.
Amy, that was emotionally very moving. And I'm going to tell you why, because you mentioned what happened. And I want to remind you, because you are obviously already know, you did not control any of the circumstances that caused those 16 people to pass, correct? Correct, Amy?
Correct.
Yeah. But guess what you did control? You controlled whether you curled up into a little ball of fetus on the ground, sucked your thumb and cried all day, or you said, let me learn some lessons from this that can help alter the course of my life. Gratitude for the people and what they contributed to my life before they passed. You mentioned that in a different words. Taking the lesson of, I will take better care of my health because that will prove that I cherish the very life that I have. Number 3, you were aware that maybe I'm not telling people or showing people or making it aware that I am so grateful for so many things in my life, including those 16 people. Right? And you know what a lot of people would have said, Amy, that you didn't say, which makes you mature beyond your years, is they would have said, I wish I would have. Right? And you didn't do that. What you did was say, how will I be going forward? Not how could I have been in the past, because you can't change the past. And if you understand that the past is perfect, that everything that happens is perfect, then how do you know? Because you can't change it. It must have been perfect. And you have to elect to believe that. You can give me an argument about it, and I'm not going to argue. Your beliefs are yours, mine are mine. I've decided that the past is perfect. No matter what happened in the past, it was perfect because it was done to teach me a lesson and lead me to a miracle, period. I've elected to believe that because it works for me. What is a belief? A belief is just something you tell yourself over and over and over again. It's brainwashing yourself into a new belief. That's all. And you've done that so well. Because even though I don't know you personally as well, I have followed your journey through your mom and dad. And you to me are one, I talk about you without ever mentioning your name on other classes. And you don't even know that. So you are affecting people's lives. When I talk to people, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. But when I talk to people about you in your office, they say these words, I don't know what I'd do without her. So good for you for standing up and stepping up and being an example to people who are much older than you. Okay, sorry. And thank you.
I'm doing the same thing with you. It's okay.
You must be. She's your daughter.
You're the one having a drink.
Yes. I was going to say it was a Long Island iced tea instead of an iced tea.
All right, who's volunteering next?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's follow that one. Andy, how about you?
Oh.
All right. Who is it?
Andy's over this side.
Well, and now
Hi,
that the
Andy.
waterworks started, I'm
Yeah.
sorry I do that too much. This goes back to a long time ago, but I had some health issues that were supposed to be a few days in the hospital, ended up being a month.
Oh, wow.
Lots of trials that went into that. But to this day, the scars that I have are badges of honor because it brought my husband to the Lord and
Ooh.
changed him as a person and us as a couple, and has forever impacted our family as a whole.
Oh, fantastic.
Wow. So I missed one word that was important to your story. You said it brought my husband, and I missed what you said right after that.
To know the Lord,
Oh,
to know the Lord.
huge.
We were born and raised Catholic, but to have a true relationship with him and trust him fully. And if
Yeah.
we hadn't gone through that, who knows where we'd both be today. So it was a very challenging time, but amazing fruit came out of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And see, you already know the miracle that came out of the pain, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, and that's the whole thing, is when I was starting to describe my time with Keller Williams on June, I can remember the day and the time. My wife had earned this beautiful vacation from her company. And we were in a 5-star resort in Park City, Utah in June. Gorgeous summer weather. And I received an email from corporate KW. And literally within about 3 to 5 minutes, of reading that email, I was curled up on the floor in a fetal position crying, literally crying, a grown man, right? I mean, in 2012, how old was I? 55, right? 54, 55 years old. And that severe extreme pain at that moment had to happen for me to be as free and happy as I am today. And I look back and I go, wow, that if that didn't happen, it wouldn't have created the impetus for me to move in a different direction. And none of where I am today would have happened without that happening, right? And of course, that's the butterfly effect, and we all know that. But the biggest, most powerful thing is looking back. It's easy to look back now and be grateful for the moment, right, Andy?
Yep.
Here's where we all have trouble, is being grateful in the moment that it occurs. In the moment that the pain occurs, you have to get that intellectual overpowering again and say, I can't even think about how I could, like in Amy's case or yours, how I could be grateful for being in the hospital for 30 days, or how I could be grateful that 16 people died. That's the tough part, because you're fighting yourself. And that's where you have to be bigger than all of it and say, I am grateful for this pain I'm experiencing because I know it will lead to a miracle.
Right. What in
Right?
me needed this to happen?
What's that?
What in me needed this to happen?
Yes, yes, yes. And the two things, I always used to do it this way. Let me show you. I don't have much blank paper. Oh, here, I'll do it right here. So if you look at this, pretend these are two streets, right? And this is the intersection. And this street right here. So tell me one word. I said I'd have to be grateful in the moment. So one of these streets is called Gratitude Street. But what would I have to have inside of me if I knew there was a miracle coming, but I didn't know when? I just believed truly. What do we call that word when you believe what you can't see?
Hope. Yeah, faith or hope.
Faith, right. So here's what I say all the time. I know can you guys see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
The intersection of the two roads called faith and gratitude. And do you know what resides at the intersection of the two roads, faith and gratitude? That's where peace resides. Think of that for a moment. If every moment you went through and said, am I being grateful in this moment? And do I have faith? That's something amazing. Now, what do a lot of people do instantly when you use the word faith? They bring it to God. So would this word faith and gratitude, if I teach somebody, the 5-week guy I was talking to yesterday is an agnostic. That's not the same as an atheist. So if the word, he said that yesterday, he said, I'm just having a one-on-one conversation. A friend of mine asked me to speak to him. And this is a guy in his 50s, so he's not a kid. He's had a lot of success in his life. But he said, I'm an agnostic. But I was showing him this, and he still accepted it, which meant he understood that the word faith doesn't have to attach to God. It's about believing in something you can't see or that you don't have any proof of. All right. And it happens all the time in the world. There's thousands and thousands and thousands. And unfortunately, if the CBS Evening News or any of the news were committed to only telling miracles that happened as a result of pain, we'd probably have a better world. But that's not how life is. So if you understand that every time something occurs just in my day, if I can instantly go to the intersection of faith and gratitude, it brings peace to me, because then what's happening, it's very simple, is I understand what I can control and what I can't. That's all. And Paul, you said that. You said that on the other agent ghosting me and all of that stuff on your, you're a brilliant man, Paul, and I don't know how often you stop and give yourself credit for it. But the thing here is that there's things you don't control, and literally the majority of what you and me every day stress about is things you have no control over. Right? So look at what you do have control over and work on it. This is the biggest project you ever had, you, right? And God's laughing all day long at us. Like, look at you worrying about what your mom said. You can't even control what you said. Don't worry about your damn mom, right? So, right? There's there's a really good song by what's his name? He's a country singer. He sings a song called Life
Travis Tritt?
Changes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Man
Thomas
plans,
Tritt.
God laughs.
Yeah, he said, you make your plans and you hear God laughing. That's a great, great phrase because it's true, right? And Joseph Campbell, one of a great orator and author in American history, has a saying. It says like this: we must let go of the life we have planned so that we may enjoy the life that's waiting for us.
Oh, cool.
All right? I'm
Say it again, Rick.
one more time, but I want you guys to Google Joseph Campbell. We must let go of the life we have planned so that we may enjoy the life that's waiting for us. All right.
Enjoy the life, the end of it.
That's waiting for
That's
us.
waiting
We,
for
we
us.
must let go of the life we have planned so that we may enjoy the life that's waiting for us. And think about that, right? I used to talk to my son about this. I'd say, here's your day. You have your day planned and scheduled, and then here's God's plan. Sometimes, look, they align. But when they don't, whose plan do you think is going to win out?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we know.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of understanding what you must surrender to. And I'll share with you, and I may have shared it with some of you at Paul's office before, but there's the principle of embracing something, and there's the principle of surrendering to something. And one of the most difficult things to do is to surrender to something. By surrendering, you realize that you have no control over it, so you're going to accept it, right? So I saw a sign in a store the other day. It said, God, give me coffee for the things I accept, and give me wine for the things I cannot change, right?
That's pretty good.
Yeah. I almost bought it for you, Paul, but I wasn't allowed in because I didn't have a mask on. Anyway, but you say, what was I just saying just before that? Remind me real quick.
That was the saying you said, must let go of the life we have planned.
Yeah, but I
Surrendering.
was
Surrendering.
surrendering and embracing. So if someone says, you just have to surrender to that. Well, when you surrender to that, a lot of times we do it begrudgingly. Have I said this to you guys before?
Mm.
No.
Okay, when you surrender to something, you say, well, I hate that all the leaves are all over my lawn, but I got to surrender to them because I don't control the wind or the fall or the weather, right? But if you just surrender to something, you can still kind of walk around with a chip on your shoulder. Yeah, I accept it, but it sucks, right? But what if you always use the word embrace with surrender? I'm going to surrender to it and embrace it. Now we're talking about moving yourself emotionally into a different area. All right. So you don't like one of my least favorite things of all is actually writing the public remarks for my listings. And yet, when my assistant or my partner or anybody do it, to me, it sucks. Okay. So I have surrendered and embraced the fact that I'm actually really good at writing the public remarks for a listing. In fact, it's the only thing I do on my listings because my assistant takes care of everything else. She puts it all in the MLS. She gets it all ready. I just go in and I type out some really magical little, wordsmith words. And, how many of you remember the song, "Oh my God, Becky, look at her butt"? How many of you guys?
I don't remember that one.
Oh,
let's go back.
Nobody remembers that? Seriously, in your whole, who's
Yeah,
that?
they remember now.
Yeah, it's
Maybe got
coming
back.
out. I love big butts and I cannot lie, right? So, okay, so I took those words because I got a listing a few months ago, and I think even Sarah, you might have commented on it. It was probably about a year ago, and it had a huge lot. So I started the public remarks with, "Oh my God, Becky, look at that lot. I love big lots and I cannot lie." And I put,
That's pretty good. That's
Yeah.
pretty good.
I got about 30 phone calls from people totally not interested in the property, but wanted to tell me how great the comments were. So, and sometimes I'll mention songs and all those things. But now I've surrendered to and embraced the fact that I'm going to do the comments and I'm good at it and it helps, right? It helps the sale. So my wife and I in 2020 got an RV, a 43-foot RV, and we went literally less than 10 days. We'd never owned an RV. Less than 10 days after buying this huge vehicle, huge, 43 foot. Okay, the biggest ones they make are 45. So it was pretty darn big. 2 axles in the back. And within 10 days of owning it, we were gone. We left on a 60-day trip around the US. All right. Now, here's what I want you to think about. We had to surrender to so much. You never know when something's going to go wrong. You make your plans and you hear God laughing because you pull into an RV park thinking you're going to be there for a night or 2 nights. And then all of a sudden something breaks and you're there for 4 nights, right? While you're waiting for a part to come or somebody to come and fix it. So we decided that we weren't just going to surrender, that we were going to embrace it. We were going to laugh and find ways to celebrate when we got stuck somewhere we didn't plan. And it really changed the outcome of the trip. And you know, the one thing everybody's, how did you plan it? We just said, we didn't. Really, you didn't? No, we just said we wanted to go across the top of the US and then down the East Coast and back across the bottom. And we wanted to stop a couple other places on the way. And we were going to do some classes and talk to some realtors. And it was a blast. But we realized at the end that we had more fun than we could have ever possibly imagined because we both surrendered and embraced what we didn't control.
Mhm.
Embraced it. That means we're having fun with it because you wouldn't hug something you didn't like. So think about that. Have you ever met someone and they lean in to hug you and you go, and you lean backwards and stick your hand out for a handshake. So it's really that. So
Rick,
I
I
don't
think that'd be a great segue into our world of real estate right now. You know, I mean, that's why we started the PPP, was just the craziness that's going around us right now. And we can't change what we can't change, but we can change ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's a great segue to go into embracing what it is. And it was great because it gave me a great thoughts for my next video to make. Because you know what? We did change a lot of lives this year. There's a lot of people that we helped through really tough situations, whether they lost jobs, had COVID, lost a family member like Amy did. There's a lot of people that experienced crazy this year. And you know what we did? We helped them and their family get into their new life. And we got to remember that part of it.
Yeah, even Paul, if you go back to the riots and everything of last year and you guys did one voice and you were telling everybody about that, like you did so many great forward thinking things, right? And I heard a guy the other day, he's 38 years in the business. He said, I can't wait for the next big buyer's market so all these losers will get out of the business.
Yeah.
Because between 2007 and 2011, guys, the NAR, National Association of Realtors, lost 38% of their membership. 38% went from 1.4 million to 1.1 million at one point. So it's a big deal. So a lot of experienced agents who get sick of the lack of professionalism, they say, let's just wait for a really big buyer's market and everybody will leave, right? But we don't have to do that. We can be a living professional example, and that's all you can control. I will be the example, period. Okay. So that's my talk for today. Paul, do you want to do a quick question and answer session or that'd
be good.
Or something like, forgive me, Lord, the last time I confessed was then. And we can do that.
Anybody on Zoom, just unmute and jump in. Anybody here, just any questions that you've got for Rick? How did Rick handle a situation that maybe you're going through or have gone through in the past, and get his take on how we'd handle the situation? Go ahead and jump in. Sarah, I know you got something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you were in the fetal position on the ground in your pain, what happened to change your perspective? What was it, a process? Was it a light bulb moment? What happened?
Yeah, so long before that, Sarah, I had been told about gratitude. And in that moment, I could not find it, nor did I even think about it. So that's the problem, is when you have reaction versus intention, I want you both, all of you, to think about reaction versus intention. What's my intention? And most of the time, my intention is completely opposite of my reaction. Okay. A reaction is what? It's an action from your gut. It's not from your mind. It's like this, Sarah, you have kids. Have you recently or ever snapped at one of them? Just like you just
Oh,
went,
never.
Liar.
Yes, of course. Yes, absolutely.
right. So don't you sometime within 2 minutes up to 24 hours have some regret about the reaction, about the snap?
Yep.
Don't you?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, and that's the whole thing. That's the intellectual part is what says, why the heck did you do that? You've told yourself not to do that anymore, right? That's the part that's the common sense. And it's hard to pull when you're in that moment. So what happened for that particular thing was literally Keller Williams telling me, because I'd been speaking and training for Keller Williams by then for 11 years, and I was their #1 most requested speaker and trainer. And then I was also speaking and coaching and training to other companies and people because everybody was asking me to, and I was loving it, right? I mean, it was so exciting to me. And they sent me this nasty letter saying, if you don't stop keep speaking and coaching to other people, we're going to sue you and take away your market centers, which is my offices. I had 9 franchises. And I was starting to get rid of some of them anyway, and had gotten rid of a few of them because of the devastation financially owning them during the downfall. So I think I was down to maybe 5 or 6 franchises at the time. And I'm like, what? I'm like the ambassador in the world for Keller Williams. I bleed Keller Williams, right? I was like, why? What do we always say in those moments? Why are you doing this to me?
Yes.
Okay. Isn't that what we say? We say, that's victim right there. Why are you doing this to me? I don't deserve this, right? But I didn't see myself in that. Luckily, I had this little lady named my wife now, but then she was only my girlfriend, giving me perspective. Well, maybe this is a way for you to look at a different avenue for your life, for creating the success you want to succeed. That's what it was. But that was a process that literally took from June 12th, probably for the rest of that year. Okay. And by the end of 2012, beginning of 2013, I knew I wasn't long for Keller Williams, but I didn't end up leaving till 2015. But I was a much happier person then because I was putting in effect a plan, right? That if I maybe first I talked to Keller Williams about maybe if I don't own offices, and they said it was because you own offices, we can't allow you to do this. And so they had their reasons. So I said, okay, maybe if I don't own offices, if I start to divest myself. And then they kept throwing other roadblocks. But I said, well, maybe I just need to not be at Keller Williams anymore, right? So I joined, for instance, Workman Success Systems about 6 months before I left KW, but I was leaving. I was just waiting for some things to get taken care of. Everybody knew I was leaving. KW knew I was leaving, everybody. So I joined Workman Success without worrying that they're going to get bad at me for coaching to other people because I was on my way out the door. So it was a slow but sure process. And every step of the way, even when I went to work for Vural, somebody called them and said, here's the crap that guy Rick has pulled and has been accused of at Keller Williams, just so you know, right? I don't even know who did that.
Vindictive.
So Vural calls me. Vural's a very devout Mormon, very family oriented, all about values and very strict religious man. And he said, hey, Rick, I know that we're talking about you joining our company to be our 6th coach. Today I have over 80. I was number 6.
Wow.
But I want to address these things with you. I addressed him straight on. He hired me. He said, I want you on our coaching team. Right. And that was my first day that I remember when he did that. Like I cried that day. I'm a big crier, so don't. Yeah. But I cried that day because I realized there was another roadblock that someone else put there. Like someone else called and said, don't be freaking hiring that guy. He's a loser, essentially. So lots of process over it. But guess what? Again, ego decisions based over joy-based decisions. I even realized that being allowed to coach top producers was an ego-based decision. Look at me, I'm coaching a guy that sells 600 homes a year. I'm coaching a brokerage that has 9 offices. I'm coaching, like big stuff. I was coaching 23 people. I now realize I can decide what makes me feel better. I only coach Paul and one Remax franchisee in Hawaii. That's it. My choice. I got rid of 22 coaching clients. I love Paul as a human. I love Chris out in Hawaii as a human. That's what I said. I'm only going to work with people that I think are amazing people trying to change the world. And the money doesn't make that much of a difference to me. So yes, Sarah, it was a process, but you have to understand that unless you embrace that process, because if you go into that process going, I know I have to do the process, it sucks, but I'll do it because I know what's on the other end. That's how the rest of your life's going to be.
And I just want to say thank you for coaching me to do the same thing, because I'm happier than I've ever been. And I thank you for your encouragement.
You're welcome. You're an amazing lady. You're an amazing lady. So,
I kind of think it's a habit too. Like if you emotionally aren't feeling up to doing this 10 gratitude things every day, but you build a habit, then it does eventually turn your mind and brain into that is your way of thinking.
right. Right. And one of the things I might suggest, guys, for those of you who, the first thing you have to start doing is stop going to bed thinking about what you didn't do. Like, just stop that shit. Excuse my language. But when you go to bed, think about what you did do. Give yourself some damn kudos for one thing you did. Even if it's, I remembered to brush my freaking teeth. Okay, good for you. Yay. Right. Remember when you were 3 years old and you remembered to brush your teeth, your mom would go, good for you. Okay, now you can go to bed. So the whole thing is we don't spend enough time giving ourselves credit. It's time for grace, guys. I mean, this world has shown us this is the time to have some grace.
Yeah.
And give it to yourself first. Okay. A lady texted me from Toronto, Canada, that I knew through my wife's business. She's in the network marketing industry with Nu Skin for 13 years. And my wife's very successful. She'll get paid a nice paycheck every month for the rest of her life because of what she built for the 13 years she's been there. And this lady texted me and said, could you tell me, Rick, you've always been so helpful at Nu Skin meetings and stuff like that. She said, I want you to tell me what you think my strengths are. And a few days later, she texts back and says, tell me what my weaknesses are, areas for improvement, right? And I told her, I said, nobody has areas of improvement. They have, no, she said, things I need to work on. I said, you don't need anything. If you'd like to work on things, you just have to take a look at yourself. I said, you are a loving, caring person, and you are not trusting of yourself. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, you don't trust a lot of people, correct? And she said, yes. I said, when you don't trust a lot of people, it's because you don't trust yourself. You always have to turn things around. Everything's a principle of reflection. You can't see in others what isn't in yourself. Let me say that again. If you see something in others that bothers you, you can only see it if it's in you also. That's kind of a rule that people hate. You mean that guy I hate him because there's something in him that I have also? Yes. And you couldn't see it unless you had it. You can't recognize the trait unless you already have that trait. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really important when you commend somebody or compliment them, guess what? Same rule. You can't see that trait in them unless you had it in yourself. So stop and give yourself some kudos also. All right. Yeah.
Hey, Rick, I'll finish up with one quick one that you could share with everybody and then we'll let you get off the call. So, when a situation escalates to the point that the agent reaches out to me. Yeah. And the emotions that are going through that agent at that time are very rough, and they're intense and they're just totally, wrapped up in this one situation. The other agent's ghosting me. The lender is not returning my communication. I mean, it could be all of it. Just happened 5 minutes before I walked into the meeting today. Okay. Yeah. That comes at me like that. And for all the situations I've been through in my 15 years in this industry, it's just another speed bump. To me, I'm going to take it half-fast or half-hearted, because I've been through it before and it's going to work itself out. And, again, going back to we can't control. We can't make that person answer their phone. Drive to their house and knock on their door and see if they're going to answer their door. That's not going to happen. So maybe you can just finish up with just kind of your thoughts of wisdom to how to get to take the message from today and step back and think about the good things that have happened And what is the end all goal out of this? And how do you hand it emotionally so that our agents don't become wrecks on this situation they can't control?
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. So let me remind you all that this is a business in between January 1st of 2020 and today. I've had at least 17 experiences that I've never thought of or had happen in the 40 years of selling real estate before that. Why do I say that? Like, I'm talking about incidents that like, what? That, how did that even happen? Right? Like that kind of thing. That's for a guy like me, because of all the offices I've owned and the number of people we had in those offices. We had 9 offices with 1,000 agents in them. I've overseen over 50,000 transactions in my career. That's a lot. All right. Like things that have never happened in 50,000 transactions happen. How do I surrender and embrace that? Well, first, I surrender to the fact that I learned a lesson over 35 years ago from another agent. By the way, the only agent whose retirement party I've ever gone to. That's the only retirement party I've ever gone to for a realtor. I've gone to lots of funerals, but never a retirement party. But he said, I love business because every single transaction I learned something new. He was in the business 35 years before he retired. And I remember that because everybody kept saying you learn something new on every transaction. And if you understand, if this is going to be your career and not a quick spot for you to make money, then you want to surrender to a couple of things. We overestimate what we can do in a year and we underestimate what we can do in our career. All right. This is a marathon, not a sprint. You've got to remember those. The problems that come up are the education for the future of your successful business. It's the only way to do them. I've got to remind you all again that if you run, like the bigger your goals, the bigger the challenges you're going to have to face to get there. And every day you have to check in with you and say, can I face this day without allowing my emotions to control the day? That's the biggest thing. When people do things that you don't control, they don't return your call. All you can do is what you can do legally, by the way. All right.
Yeah.
Let me just say that because there have been times when the thought of using, brute force have entered my mind, and I know people that I can hire. That's not legal, so I'm going to go. When it comes, so what Steve, my former partner in several Keller Williams, and he was also an attorney and a broker, he would always say, all I want you to do is think forward to being in front of a judge to talk about this transaction. What are you going to do and say? And more importantly, what are you going to show them? What are you going to show that judge? And I have that in the back of my mind since I was a young man in the business. And that really helps guide you. So I always want there to be a paper trail. I get when agents texting me all the time until we get into contract, I always text them right after we get in contract. Please restrict all your communication to the email chain that has my entire team on it. Immediately. Oh, well, I want to schedule an appointment to go over the house. Can I do it by text? Nope, do that by email because I want to have everything in writing. Okay, we use SkySlope, and SkySlope has an email address for each transaction. So all of that communication goes into the file. Those are important things. If you're going to remain professional, your stature and your control of your emotions are 2 of the most important things in your professionalism. And they will weigh really big when you get to court. Yeah. One of the agents on my team, she let the client in the house before close. It was going to close in about an hour. That's when we get a note. We do it differently here, but we get a notification from the title company that it's recorded. And she walked in, and the family room floor, the house had been vacant for 2 weeks. The family room floor was buckled like that in the middle. All right. We called the agent immediately, and I said, hey, it's happened already at 10:30 this morning. We didn't get notice of recordation until noon. So just have your client call his insurance company. There's something happened there. Have him call his insurance company. He's insured until his insurance policy is off. And his client wouldn't call the insurance company. It cost my clients 10 grand. And of course, she was pregnant at the time. It was a horrible time. My agent on my team was going nuts emotionally. I'm like, calm down. You have to I'll take it over. Just go bury your head in the sand for a bit. And I took it over and I said, look, there's really not much we can do. I want you to get bids. I'm going to send them to the other agent. We're going to do everything responsibly. And if they don't respond, you're going to have to get the work done, period. And they did it. They did it, they got the work done, and it took us about 7 to 8 months to get to small claims court. And we got to small claims court and we just presented everything and we sat there, me and her, me and the buyer. And the judge, you know, like they do in small claims court. If any of you have been there, I've been there a bunch of times for all of the 1,000 agents I represented. And he opened it up, he looked at it, and then he asked the other agent, he goes, it says here that Rick asked you at that morning to have your client call the insurance company. Did he do that? Did he actually call you? And the other agent said, yes, but my client and I decided that it wasn't their responsibility. He goes, did you call the insurance company to let them decide if it was something they would cover? He said, no. He literally, the judge spent 15 minutes, reprimanded them, hit the gavel and said $10,000 to the buyer. And he said, the case is closed. Like it all took 15, 20 minutes. Like what emotion? Your emotion isn't helping anything. So you do this. I've never done that. I've never done that in my life. But for me, my is this. I do this really quickly and I do one of these in my car, whatever it takes for you. What is your way of getting back to center and letting go of the things you don't control? It's the only way you're going to live in this business. I have 9 buyer's agents on my team and I can tell you, they haven't learned about emotions yet. I have one who spends all her time asking my lead buyer. I have a lead buyer specialist. She handles all the questions from the buyer's agents. And she spends all her time asking what if questions. I go, we don't handle what ifs now. We handle when they become a what if.
Oh, what ifs.
Yeah. So
Yep. Cool. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
my
Thank
pleasure.
you so
Good to see you guys
much.
all. Love you guys very much. Keep going on
I
the
love you too, buddy. Thanks. Have a great day.
path.
My real quick story to echo on all of that. 2007, it's one of my first, probably deal number 5, deal number 6 of my career. And we are doing a final walkthrough. We're closing, let's just say it's noon, we're doing a walkthrough at 10 a.m. And believe me, you heard my story. We needed that check for that commission. You know, we needed that check. It was a situation like Rick was in. And we're walking up to the house and I'm looking at the bottom of the siding. And there's icicles coming down from the bottom of the siding. Walking up to the house along the sidewalk, I'm like, this is weird, because there's not snow out, it's not winter time or anything like that, but it's probably November, right?
Yeah.
Probably November. We open up the door and there's the sheetrock ceiling on the floor. Water spraying everywhere. Bank-owned property, Jerry Bowles is listing. Pipes burst. All the sheetrock ceiling, it's a 2-story house, all it is, there's an upper level bathroom that let loose. All the sheetrock is laying on the floor. Water everywhere, frozen, all the way down into the basement. Okay, that's catastrophe.
Yes.
That's 911. That is the world's falling apart. What are we going to do? Okay, I've never encountered a situation like that to this day since. And when I get the agents that reach out to me and have a 911 and what ifs and all that kind of stuff, that's how you handle that situation. Because nothing compares to that. Nothing compares to that. Sherry just had one, supposed to close in 2 days and hasn't gotten the bid back from Ryan Lashinsky yet. He's ghosting her. Okay, I call Brian. Brian knows me. I know Brian really well. Guess what? He picks up my phone.
Yep.
All of you, the next one I work on. Okay, that's not an emergency. That's not something to freak out about, because if you're freaking out, chances are your client's freaking out, right? It's just like Rick said, smooth and steady and calm, and we'll get through it. It's not a 911, unless you happen to have a situation
Well,
like
can
that.
I add to, because you know this situation, I had an agent in my office that 2 days before closing found out that they had sold the wrong house to their buyer.
Mhm.
They legit sold the wrong house. They looked at 2 houses that day, and that agent wrote the purchase agreement for the wrong house. 2 days before closing, freaking out, as you can imagine. I happened to be here, and it was like, and you know, I immediately go to Paul and we're like, whatever. But I just very calmly said, you need to get that buyer into the house again tonight. And just don't do anything. Get him into the house and see what happens. And sure enough, the buyer brought the mom. The mom was like, oh, I just think this is great. Literally, the mom sold the buyer in the house. Closed 2 days later, the wrong house. I mean,
Did the buyer know
The
that?
buyer did not know. The buyer was driving by a different house. and very excited and showing pictures of a different house. And it got caught in just the paperwork, the final paperwork, the address.
No, it was the insurance.
It's the insurance, you're right, the insurance
Buyer
agent.
went to get insurance on the
Yes,
home,
that was it.
And they said, this doesn't match.
Right.
And that's how it blew up.
That's how it was, but sometimes, which that is definitely 911, but sometimes it's like, okay, take a deep breath,
Yeah.
get the buyer back in there. We're gonna take care of this. I mean, we were very, very upfront that you might be in very big trouble, but just do the first step, which makes sense, and it did,
Yeah.
totally worked out.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Seriously,
That's
why
that's the
was
crazy
wrong?
thing. It almost all the time does.
It does.
It works out 99.9% of the time. But some of us just take it so personally and overreact, that's our word.
Yeah.
Overreact, and it drives us insane, and it's hard, it's bad on our health, it's bad on our family, and it's bad for the client. Because we're overreacting when it really is not a 911.
Yeah, I had a quote from a couple years ago that said, pause to respond and don't jump to react. Because that's our first emotion, right? Is to just jump, anger, but if we
Yeah.
just pause, we'll think calmly enough to
Mhm.
respond and
For
not.
that walk around the parking lot. Go for that 20-minute walk that we've been talking about, just to calm down, take somebody with you, talk, and just think about it. And guess what? It'll all work itself out.
It is also why we're here too, because we're not attached to it. Is attached to it,
Yeah.
so sometimes like just another voice. Like,
We learned that in base camp. Corey Vasquez is in charge of crisis management for Realty One Group. And so anything that brokers we go to her. And she said, I'll answer your call, but I'll say, okay, I've gotta call you 5 minutes. I gotta go pour my coffee, sit down, think about it, then I know how to react to it.
yeah.
And it's that same pausing before you just jump.
Mhm.
That's actually really nice.
Yeah.
It is.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Rack.
Perfect timing. Yeah, I know. Perfect timing for what we need.
I'm glad you asked